everybody. I am so glad that you can join us here for our program information meeting on sacred air, climate and energy. This is our launch day, so we are so excited to be able to offer this to our Just Faith community, and that is hopefully ever expanding. And so I just want to thank you so much for being here, for taking the time out of your day to talk about this issue that is so incredibly important. And we are just we're just thrilled that you all are here. My name is Kristen Dollar. I am the Director of Programs here at Just Faith Ministries, and my job is to work with people who are experts in their field to put together a program for you and your communities, and in this case, to help people to better understand what the climate crisis is and why it's important and how it's central to our faith. So we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But first, some Zoom logistics. And first of all, I want to introduce to you my colleague, Leela Oakley, who is our Outreach and Engagement Manager, and she'll be doing the second half of this presentation. So you'll hear more from her in a few minutes. A couple things, though, before we begin. We have everybody on mute just because for background noise sake and everything. So you cannot unmute yourself, but you can feel free to type into the chat if you have any questions. Don't hesitate to ask those through the chat function. You can find the chat box on the bottom of your screen in your toolbar. I want to start out first with a question. I know that talking about this topic of the climate crisis can seem a little bit overwhelming and can often even be a little bit scary. And we find that it's really helpful to start from a place not of fear, but of gratitude. So I want to take just a second to do that. And I'm wondering if you all would mind participating in this just for a second, and to think of your favorite place in nature. And take a minute to envision that place, your number one favorite place in nature in our world, and to type that into the chat box. Oh, the Redwoods and Lake Michigan. Yeah, that's great. I'm hoping to visit the Redwoods one day. Acadia. Memkin Abbey, yes. Painted Desert. Yeah, there are some on here that are definitely on my list of places to travel. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you all so much. And as we hear more about this program, and maybe as you go throughout your week, let's just continue to hold these places in our heart so that we can approach this topic with gratitude and appreciation and a perspective of a posture of honoring God's creation. And now we're going to turn to, we have a video describing a little bit about this program. So Leela is going to pull that up for us.
Sacred Air, Climate and Energy is the second of 3 programs in the Eco-Justice series. It invites participants to consider the connection between faith and the environment, and to see the air we breathe as something much more than just a resource to be used. Along with your group, you will explore the foundational science behind climate change, how the climate crisis will affect us in the future, especially the devastating impact it threatens for marginalized groups, and a practice of lament and hope in the face of an overwhelming problem. You can also expect to take away practical strategies for your home, workplace, congregation, neighborhood, anywhere you can support and advocate for more sustainable practices. As with any Just Faith Ministries program, you will be joined by 7 to 14 others as you seek to understand these topics and one another in a spirit of humility, openness, and hope. It is time for people of faith to lead the way in care for our common home. We invite you to join us today.
So Sacred Air, a huge part of this program is that it ties our love and concern for the air around us with the breath of God, which also flows through us and gives us life. And it's so easy to take for granted both of these things. And putting together this program, I really try to be intentional about creating a space in every session to guide our Just Faith community and acknowledging and giving thanks for the air around us and for the presence of God's Spirit and God's breath that is always with us. So I'm just going to ask for 5 minutes of your time to give you a little bit of a taste for this important foundation for the program. And we're going to take some time to just be present with God and be present in the space in which we find ourselves. So I'm going to start from a reading, and this comes from the book Earth Prayers, which is part of the program. This is a collection of poetry and prayers and just in excerpts that is really lovely. And so this particular one is by Lyle Watson. It's called Blessed Be the Wind. Blessed be the wind. Without wind, most of Earth would be uninhabitable. The tropics would grow so unbearably hot that nothing could live there, and the rest of the planet would freeze. Moisture, if any existed, would be confined to the oceans, and all but the fringe of the great continents would be desert. There would be no erosion, no soil, and for any community that managed to evolve despite these rigors, no relief from the suffocation of their own waste products. But with the wind, Earth comes truly alive. Winds provide the circulatory and nervous systems of the planet, sharing out energy and information, distributing both warmth and awareness, making something out of nothing. All wind's properties are borrowed. Our knowledge of it comes at secondhand, but it comes strongly. And this combination of a force that cannot be apprehended, but nevertheless has an undeniable existence, was our first experience of the spiritual. A crack in the cosmos that widened to let the tide of consciousness flow through. We are fruits of the wind and have been seeded, irrigated, and cultivated by its craft. And so, like the wind causes the earth to come truly alive, so true, our breath powers our beating hearts. We will now take a couple of minutes to honor our breath. So first, let's just find a comfortable position. You can close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. You can rest your hands with your palms face up, either on your lap or on the table, in a posture to signify your receptiveness to God's love. And as you do this, begin to notice your breath's natural rhythm. Notice how your body knows when to inhale and exhale on its own. There's not even a need to think about it. When one breath ends, the next one begins. Now pay attention to where you feel your breath in your body. Maybe it's your abdomen, maybe it's your throat, maybe it's your chest. If your mind starts to wander, it's okay. Just gently call it back to your breath. And now let's take a big inhale as we breathe in God's peace. And as we exhale, let us send peace to each other. Let's do that 2 more times. Breathing in peace, sending peace to others. Breathing in peace and sending peace to others. And now when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. As we continue in our time together, both today and throughout your work for climate justice, may we seek to notice and to honor God's Spirit flowing through us and among us. Amen. Thank you all so much for humoring me, and we'll get started in learning a little bit more about Sacred Air. First, a little bit about just who we are as Just Faith Ministries. Is anyone here new to us, this is their very first Just Faith program and maybe their first experience with Just Faith Ministries? Raise your hand. Awesome. Well, just a little bit about who we are. We, as Just Faith Ministries, we seek to provide participants with space to create community, to grow spiritually, and to equip people to seek justice. Our programs are facilitated in your own communities. It can either be your virtual communities with people across the nation, or they can be in-person communities, either in your church, or your place of work, or your place of worship, or maybe in your own home or another location in person. We have a wide variety of programs, and I just want to focus on a couple of those. You can see the long list of them right here. But one thing that I want to emphasize about Sacred Air is that it is part of a series of 3 programs. Each of them are 8 sessions plus an immersion experience session. Sacred Land, Food and Farming is the first program in this series, and it explores our connection with the land and our responsibility for it. And so in that program, small groups learn about how food and farming practices affect the climate crisis, marginalized communities, and their own health and spiritual well-being. Sacred Air is the second one, which we're going to focus on today. And then Sacred Water is coming in the spring of 2022, so you can look forward to that. And that one will help participants discern how we can better care for the Earth's waters and the creatures that live on it. And so we will, through prayer and spiritual practices, small groups are going to explore their relationship with water in both the Christian scriptures and through their daily life. Sacred Land is already out. Sacred Air, this is the first day that's out today. And Sacred Water, again, is coming in spring of 2022. And you can take these programs in any order that you would like to. So Sacred Air, Climate and Energy is the second program in this series, and it explores the impact of the climate crisis on God's creation and God's people. The point is to discern ways that we can restore the health of our planet and those who live and the health of those who live on it. And so to do that, small groups learn about the causes and the effects of the climate crisis. Some of the topics that we'll talk about a little bit more include greenhouse gases, air pollution, fossil fuels, renewable energy, the Paris Agreement, and environmental racism. And the prayer and spiritual practices really ground this program, and they help participants to notice the breath of God that flows through them, granting them the life and the energy that they need to address this really difficult topic with passion and resilience. And you can expect to leave this Sacred Air, Climate and Energy better equipped to address the climate crisis, both through mobilizing your community, virtual or in person, and also by making personal choices that honor God's creation. Our partners in this are Bread for the World, who is a partner in all of our programs, and they do some really amazing work in advocacy and organizing. And encourage you to check out their website. And also Creation Justice Ministries provided a lot of guidance for us in creating this program and is a partner with us in this specific series. So we are grateful for their support and urge you, we think that their resources are some of the best out there, and urge you to check out those as well. Some of the goals for this, as I kind of explained earlier, but just so you can see, of course, to understand the basic principles of the climate crisis. A lot of times, me included, before really working on this program, I thought I knew a lot about the climate crisis, but there's a lot of disinformation out there. So it's really important that we get that grounding in science. And so you learn about that in this program. Also, to learn about the climate crisis's disproportionate effects on communities and experiencing poverty and communities of color, so that we can discern ways that we can seek justice together alongside folks experiencing the effects of the climate crisis through advocacy, through solidarity, and through organizing. And of course, another goal is to practice noticing God's presence with us, always with us through the Holy Spirit, and to develop a plan for addressing the climate crisis. So now I'm just going to take you through the program a little bit, session by session, so you can really get a feel for what is the program content. Session 1 lays the theological foundation for this program. And so in this session, participants really take some time to notice and celebrate God's Spirit, and through flowing through ourselves, through the people in their group, and those in the world around us, and through Scripture. And there's a deep dive into some important passages of Scripture relating to God's breath. Session 2 is called Climate Change, Is It Even Real? And so that introduces folks to some of the basic science around climate change so that they can debunk some of those myths that are out there and help to educate their communities about this really important issue. Session 3 is about fossil fuels and renewable energy. And so that gets at what fossil fuels are and the impact that they have on real human lives in our communities. And in this session, participants learn ways to reduce energy consumption and advocate for renewable energy. And session 4 is on greenhouse gases and carbon footprint. And so we look at greenhouse gases and how that leads to climate change and air pollution. And we also talk about the particular effect that air pollution is having on marginalized communities and discern how we can respond to that crisis. Session 5, after you hear from a guest speaker from the local community, and you'll hear a little bit more about the guest speaker and opportunities in a few minutes. After hearing from the guest speaker, this will really be a time to process some of this really heavy information that we've been studying. And so this session hones in on the biblical tradition of lament and hope. And it's a time for participants to really vocalize and spiritually process what they've been thinking and feeling. Session 6 is on environmental justice, and really environmental justice is incorporated throughout, because the climate crisis, of course, it's important to know the science, but it has real human impacts that are important to understand. And so in this session, we'll really focus in on that. We'll talk about what environmental justice is, why it's important, and how you can join the movement for environmental justice. Participants divide into small groups, and they take a deep dive into a specific focus area around environmental justice. Between 6 and 7 is an immersion experience with the local community, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We think that the guest speaker and the immersion experience are both really important because they allow folks to meet people who are already engaged in this effort. Sometimes they even have an opportunity to begin to stand in solidarity with folks who are already experiencing the brunt of this issue for climate change, and to begin to engage in advocacy and organizing efforts. And we just think that it's really important that folks already have a foot into this, these potential steps for action before they leave session 8. And then so after the immersion experience is session 7 on climate communication. And we thought that it was really important in this era of so much fear and polarization that people have the tools to talk about the climate crisis in a way that's prophetic and also productive. And so we'll explore some strategies here for communication around this really important topic. And then session 8, of course, is on climate action, and small groups will create an action plan of steps that they will take both as individuals and as a group together. We believe that insight without action isn't very productive. So this is a really important part of the program to discern what those action steps will be, and to discern how folks will hold each other accountable within their small groups to taking action. We picked out what I think are some really great books for this program. The first one is The Story of More by Hope Jahren. She's a scientist, but she also tells us a really lovely story about her own relationship with this issue, and then just gives some really understandable and relatable information about the climate crisis. And then the second 2 books are actually used throughout the eco-justice series, Earth Prayers, which you got a little taste of during the opening meditation, and Laudato Si by Pope Francis, which does a great job with some spiritual grounding. Some other resources that we use are, I don't know if anyone has heard of Project Drawdown, that's doing some really great scientific work on possible solutions to mitigating climate change and ending the climate crisis, but we use a lot of their resources. They're phenomenal, and it's all available online. We also use a lot of, or several videos from the scientist Katherine Hayhoe. She does a fantastic job. So if you want a little taste of some of the science that we incorporate, you can check out some of her videos from her Global Weirding series. And also just, I mean, scripture, obviously, it almost goes without saying, but scripture is a really important part of this series. There are spiritual practices between each of the sessions, and in this program, we take you throughout scripture and really hone in on those passages that get at God's breath and God's relationship with us through the image of breath. So I think that is it for program content. So I'm going to now turn it over to Leela.
Thank you, Kristen. It is good to be here with you all today. I am the Outreach and Engagement Manager with Just Faith Ministries. And a big part of my role with the organization is supporting facilitators in their local communities who are using our programs like Sacred Air. So I wanted to give you just some practical information. So really what to expect in this program, and then some steps for how to get started. So this program, like all of our programs at Just Faith Ministries, are 8 sessions. And as Kristen referenced, in session 5, there is the opportunity to invite a guest speaker from the local community. If it's a virtual group, or even if it's an in-person group, you can expand the options for guest speakers by either zooming in the guest speaker for an in-person group, or if you're virtual, inviting anyone to join you on a virtual platform. So you can think big with the guest speaker. Again, that's a time to invite someone who's an expert in the field or who's doing grassroots organizing around environmental issues in your local area. Those 8 sessions are 2 hours in length, both for the virtual and in the in-person programs. In addition to those 8 sessions, there is an immersion experience. So there's 9 times throughout the course of the program that this small group will meet together. And that immersion experience, as Kristen mentioned, is a time for the group to get connected in their local community with an organization or a group of people who are already doing the work of justice around environmental concerns. And if it's a virtual group that's meeting, and let's say that virtual group is meeting with folks from all across the country, it could be a great opportunity to engage with one of these national organizations that is doing advocacy work on environmental justice. Our programs are designed for small groups. We recommend small groups between 7 and 14 individuals. If you're doing a virtual group, I tend to think a little smaller is better, so maybe somewhere between the 7 to 12 range. As Kristen referenced when she was explaining the books and resources for the program, we have weekly assignments between the sessions. And those weekly assignments are readings from the books she referenced. Sometimes they're going to be viewing a YouTube video or reading an article. Those assignments take on average between maybe an hour to an hour and a half between session. So that's just helpful to know. And as you're promoting the program, that there is that 2-hour time together every week, but then there's the time apart where you engage more deeply in the texts and the readings and the articles. One thing I didn't mention is that there is an optional get to know you session for this program. So that would take place before the initial opening session. And it is exactly what the name indicates. It's a time for the group to get to know one another. So if you're looking to draw together a small group of people who maybe aren't already in relationship with each other, it could be, it's even within your church, but it's a group of folks who aren't familiar with each other and each other's stories. It's a time to connect, to learn about one another, so that as you enter into the program content, you already feel connected and there's a sense of trust and community. It is optional, so it's there for you if that's going to be a resource for your small group, or you can begin with session 1 if it's not. So session outline, Kristen outlined the topics in the program, but I want to give you a picture of what you can expect in each session. This is going to change depending on the session, but generally speaking, every one of the sessions will open with a welcome and an opening prayer or meditation. It will have a time for dialogue around a video or an article. Then there'll be time for break and announcement. Another time of dialogue around the weekly assignments. So questions will be provided to explore more deeply the reading that was done throughout that week. And again, every program ends with a closing prayer. So we open our sessions with prayer and we close our time together with prayer. So how to get started. If you are interested in this program and you're thinking, how do I bring this to my community? Really, the first step is to register for the program. By registering for the program, you immediately get access to the program material through an online account, and you can begin planning for the program and getting familiar with the resources. The program costs $225 per group. And so right now that is a one-time registration fee that covers the costs for all of the participants. It grants the group access to the program material for a year. If this program is purchased by a church or an organization, that community gets access to that program for 1 year and can run multiple small groups under that registration fee. The only additional cost to that registration fee is the cost of books per participant. And for this program, I believe the cost is right at about $42 if you purchase those resources through Just Faith Ministries. If you've done the Sacred Land program, obviously you have two of the texts are going to be carried over into this program, so you'd just be purchasing that first book that Kristen referenced. Once you have registered for the program and you have the material, you can begin envisioning what do you want your small group to look like. So do you want to meet in person or are you meeting virtually? If you're trying to reach a group of participants from across the country, obviously virtual is going to be your best platform. So you identify the platform, and then it's a process of identifying who are going to be the co-facilitators. At Just Faith Ministries, our small groups are led by co-facilitators. These are not teachers or experts, but there's people in the community who are willing to take on the responsibility of leading the small group. Our programs are designed to support facilitators. The program comes with a manual that gives introductions to facilitators, scripts every session for facilitators so that they can register and really hit the ground running without any trouble. In addition to that manual for facilitators, there's also 2 trainings a month for facilitators, new facilitators, as well as 2 Zoom trainings for anyone who still needs some help learning the platform for virtual groups. I'm also available for one-on-one support. So if you're willing and interested in taking on that role, you are not doing it alone. I'm here to help. Once you've identified the format, you've identified the facilitators, it begins the fun part, setting the date and recruiting participants. If you've done one of our programs before, you may be familiar with our promotion kits. Those are kits available for free to download on our website that provide marketing resources for the program. So for Sacred Air, you can download the promotion kit, and there's social media posts, a program booklet, email texts, everything you need to get the word out about this amazing program and to attract people to participate with you. So again, we are thankful to be here with you all today. We are really excited about this program and to see the impact it has in local communities across our country. We have plenty of time for Q&A, and so we'd love to be able to speak to your specific questions, whatever those might be. So if you have any questions, we invite you to send them through the chat. Since we have several people on the call, we won't allow you to unmute just so we can keep a little bit of order. So if you have a question, send it over to me and I will moderate the Q&A for us today. Kristen, I have a question that's come in. This person is asking about how this program would work with interfaith groups. I invite you to speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say this program is written from the Christian perspective, so I would be really upfront that the spiritual practices do incorporate the Christian scriptures. If people know about that ahead of time and are okay with that, then I would say, of course, go forward. But it is a program that is it is from a Christian perspective. So I think that's really important to make sure everybody knows that ahead of time.
Wonderful, thank you. Kristen, someone's asked for you to remind the group of the different organizations' names that you mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation. So the organizations we partnered with in creating this program.
Sure. So our official partners are Creation Justice Ministries and Bread for the World. And I will say too, we had a couple people, I think Carol might even be on this call. Carol did consult with me at the beginning to provide some really great resources. And she has just an amazing background in this work. And also Matthew Groves, who works for the Young Evangelicals for Climate Change.
Wonderful. Someone has asked whether these programs need to be done sequentially or if they can be done independently.
Yeah, you can do them in any order. Some of our other programs do require you to do them sequentially, but this one you can do them in whatever order you like.
I have a comment that's come in, and I'll share this comment with everyone. So it's not quite a question, but this individual says that they've just completed the racial justice series, and their group is really interested in engaging around environmental justice and exploring the impacts of our environmental crisis on communities of color. So they're really looking forward to being able to offer this as a follow-up to that program.
That is so awesome. That makes me really hopeful. Thanks for the amazing work that your community is doing. This program really does incorporate environmental racism, and all of them, talk about environmental racism and things that we can do to pursue both racial justice and environmental justice. And you'll find that throughout the whole eco justice series. So I do think that is a natural follow up to the racial justice series, and hopefully we'll give you guys some ways that you can really get involved in your own community to taking action.
Wonderful. I have a question about hybrid groups. This person's asking whether it's possible for a group to meet part of the time in person and part of the time virtually. And I would say yes. We don't have many groups who've tried this model of meeting, let's say, for the get to know you in person and then the rest of the sessions virtually, because it wasn't until this year that we really had groups doing our programs virtually. But I think there's could be a lot of benefit there. So if you are meeting with a small group that is in the same city or the same geographical area, you could consider meeting for the first session or two in person to build those relationships and that sense of connection. And then for ease of access, move to meeting virtually. So I think that's a great option. Kristen, someone has asked about pricing for all three curriculums. So if they want to go ahead and register for all three programs in the Eco Justice series, do you have information on that? If not, I can speak to that.
I do not have the information on that.
Okay. Yes. So this is a great question. For those of you who've done one of our other series, when the series are purchased all together, so all three programs in a series, there is a $25 program discount to each of the individual programs. We provide a coupon code for that purchase. Since the third program in this series is not yet available, I'll need to speak with our website manager, but I don't see why we wouldn't be able to work up a system where you're able to kind of pre-register for that program and receive the discount. But I don't want to promise that to you all just because I haven't spoken with the rest of the staff, but I think we should be able to figure something out. Kristen, I have a question from someone who's just completed Sacred Land, and they're wondering if the weekly assignments are about the same amount in this program. So the amount of time that they dedicated to those between session assignments will be equivalent in this program.
Yeah, I would say so. You know, if anything, I would say that the time overall would be about the same. I think that in this program, your reading might diminish just slightly, but your spiritual time spent in spiritual practices is a little bit expanded. But overall, it's about the same amount of time.
Great. I have another question about the assignments. For the weekly assignments, when there is a video involved, are those videos to be watched individually, or are they done as a group outside of the regular meeting time?
It depends. There are, for longer videos, those are a little bit harder to show over Zoom for various reasons, for attention span over Zoom, and also the audio I found is slightly diminished. So some of the longer ones you would watch individually, but shorter ones that are less than 8 minutes or so are shown in session.
Great. I have a question about virtual immersion groups. So Kristen, if this group is gathered virtually and they are from all across the country, what would be an immersion experience that you think would be a good route for this group to move forward through looking for?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of different options, actually. One of the cool things about, I guess a cool thing that's happened during this time is that organizing groups and different nonprofits working on this, doing great work on this issue, have started to offer virtual webinars and training. So of course, that would be a great way to get plugged in. You could have somebody who knows how to do an energy audit come and speak to your group. You could have a second opportunity for a guest speaker. Let's say that your group shows a particular amount of interest in a certain topic, so you can have a second guest speaker come in. You could have someone give you a virtual tour of maybe a wind farm or a nonprofit that works on this issue. So that's always an option. There's lots of creative options that you can do for virtual groups.
Someone has asked if the books are available through ebook or Kindle. And I do know that The Story of More is available both in an audiobook version as well as an ebook. I do not know off the top of my head about Earth Prayers or Laudato Si. I would imagine Laudato Si is available in audio and ebook version. Kristen, do you know if Earth Prayers are available in audio or ebook?
I actually only use the Kindle versions of all of those things. That Laudato Si is actually free online, so you can just go to the website. I personally like to be able to underline and all that, so yeah. So I actually just copied and pasted into a Microsoft Word document so that I could annotate notes and all that. But that one's free online if you like. And the other two are available on Kindle.
Wonderful. Someone has asked about group size, saying that they might have a group of around 18 folks who are interested in participating, and if that is too large. As I mentioned, the ideal group size is really 7 to 14. When you start exceeding 14 participants and facilitators, the issue you're going to run up against is the amount of time you have to share with one another. So if you have a portion of time to discuss the reading for that week that's only 40 minutes in length, and you're trying to divide that time so that everyone has time to process and share what they gained from that reading, it becomes a lot harder to do with 18 people versus 12. You're just dividing that time so that people end up having only 30 seconds to speak. So I would strongly recommend seeing if there's a way to get 4 facilitators and to break into 2 smaller groups. If that is not possible, and this is the only way for your group to gather at a larger size, I would encourage you to move forward, and it will be okay, but to utilize small group discussion. So if you're in person, breaking out into smaller group discussion, or if you're virtual, you can use the breakout room function on Zoom or other video conferencing platforms to navigate that dialogue time so that everyone gets time to process and share. Kristen, are you seeing any other questions on your end? I think I've caught all of the questions. If I have not answered your question and you sent it to me, resend it. As they were coming in, there's a chance someone's got lost, so feel free to resend it. But I believe I've covered all the questions so far. While we're waiting for any final questions to come in, I wanted to let you all know we will send a follow-up email tomorrow that will contain the recording of this event so that you can go back and watch it if you have other notes you'd like to make, or you can send it out to anyone who might be interested in the program. In addition to the recording of this event, we will have the video we shared at the very beginning, which is a great resource for promoting the program in your community. And the email will come from me. So if you have additional questions, or if you are considering being a facilitator for a small group, please don't hesitate to reach back out to me and we can set up a time to chat one-on-one.
Great. Well, thank you all so much.
I do have a few more questions that came in, so let me get to these before we end the meeting. Oh, we have a question that's come in from a participant of the call who's wondering how many people on this call have participated in the first eco-justice program, Sacred Land. So if you've participated, go ahead and send your name to Kristen and she'll tally up who's all participated. And then I have two remaining questions. The first is a question about Kristen's intro. So will that prayer and meditation be in the recording? And it will. So it'll be at the start of the recording. We'll be sure to include that for anyone who found that meaningful and would like to revisit the meditation and prayer. And then the last question I have is from someone who is inquiring about the pilot group of the program. So if you don't know, we pilot every program that we release to ensure that it is as meaningful of an experience for participants as we think it is when we've created it. So there is a group that has piloted this program. And this individual is wondering if they could get connected with members of the pilot group. If you're interested in that, reach out to me and I'll see what I can do to get you connected to those individuals so that they can share their experience. And I have, Kristen, one person on my side said they have completed Sacred Land. Has anyone reached out to you and said that?
Yes, I had 2 facilitators and 1 participant.
Wonderful. So we have a few folks on the call. If you're interested in learning more about Sacred Land, you can go to our website, download the overview and sample session. You're also welcome to reach out to me with any questions about that program. And I think that might be it for us, Kristen.
Yeah. Oh, we have somebody else who's in the last 2 weeks of Sacred Land. That's fantastic. I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here. I know that if you were here, you care deeply about this issue and you're probably already involved in this work. And so just know that, whether or not it's through our programs, that we are here in solidarity with you, and just continue to let us know how we can support the work that you're doing. Thank you again and take care.
Yes, thank you all. We'll be in touch soon.